Well, in your church or ministry, you undoubtedly have things you want people to sign up for, whether it's to serve or for event or for groups or anything like that. The question is, how can you get them more effectively? Well, today on Practical Church Planting, we're going to share with you 6 tips to get more signups at your church.
Welcome back to Practical Church Planting. My name is Brian Androsian, and with me is Dylan Dodson. And today we're going to give you 6 ways to get more signups.
And this episode is brought to you by me. Real quick, I've got a bunch of productivity resources over at my site, dylandotson.com. I know in ministry, you got a lot of tasks, a lot of things going on. How do you stay focused? So I'm developing a lot of resources. Many of them are free. So if you head to dylandotson.com, I've got a weekly newsletter that you can read in a minute or less with some productivity tips. And I've got resources at dylandotson.com/productivity. Some free webinars. If you're listening to this in real time, my next one is Thursday, October 6th at 2 p.m. And it's totally free. It's about how to be focused and stay on top of your task list. So you can sign up there. If you listen to this later, dylandotson.com/productivity. You can always find other resources there.
That's right.
And so speaking of church signups, not Dylan Dotson signups,
Yep.
here we go. 6 ways to get more signups. And this is for anything. So group, serving, an event, I don't know, whatever you want.
Whatever you
See
need people to
sign
up
up for.
That's
Here's
right.
how you do it. Number 1, make it possible to sign up when you mention it. So this is one of the big problems, and this is particularly talking about like on Sundays or Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
Say, hey, we've got this thing going on, and it's great that you have got it going on, but if people can't do anything about it then, they're likely going to forget or just not do it after the service. Maybe they feel motivated to do it then, but because there's no way for them to do it after the service, they're kind of like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll do it later. Now, this is not to say like people have to like get up and leave your auditorium. So you could do this one of 2 ways. One, and we're going to talk a little bit about this more at our last point, so you got to stick around.
Yep.
And we kind of teased this last time about digital signups. So we have these short codes. Again, this last point of this episode, we'll talk more about it. But we have, for us, we use what's called clearstream.io. It's a weird, I don't know. It's a weird website
Apple
URL.
thing? Yeah.
I don't know. But we use Clearstream, so we have a short code. It's 97,000. And so for not everything, it's for certain things like serving and groups or whatever. It's not like for one-off events.
Yeah.
But for certain things, they can actually text during the service or text like if they're watching online. Or if you have stuff during the service too, like if you have a physical Connect card, again, this would have to be, you have to have Connect cards like in the seat backs or somewhere accessible near people. But if it's like groups, serving, or anything coming up, you can also, like, if you have checkbox on your Connect cards. Now, again, they're not necessarily going to leave the service and drop it off right then. But if it's an action that they can do as they're sitting in their seat, there's a much more higher chance that they might actually do it. Now, again, this probably doesn't work for everything.
Yeah.
And we get that. But if possible, make it possible to sign up when you mention it. And not just, hey, after the service or after you do this thing, make it really easy and clear right then.
Yeah, the good thing about giving them a way to do it then is you can literally say you can do this right now.
Yeah.
This isn't just fill out a Connect card and it's just kind of like this ambiguous thing. But depending on how much you need people to sign up for this thing, you can tell them like this right now. If you're interested in doing that, there's a Connect card and seat back in front of you. Pull it out, and as I'm talking, fill it out. And it's not like that little phrasing is gonna make people be like, oh, there's a Connect. I didn't think I could do this until later. But it's just reminding people that like, hey, this is something that you can do now. This isn't something you have to wait and try and remember later. And just the shorter you can make that time frame between people hearing it and them needing to sign up, the more likely you are to get people to sign up.
Yep. So, again, this is different. I mean, maybe you don't have Connect cards readily available. We have various episodes on, how to get Connect cards filled out and stuff, and so we think that's really important. But just know if there's a way for them to do it then and there, there's a much higher likelihood that at least for some people, that they're actually going to do it. And so make it possible to sign up when you mention it, however that might look like for you.
Yep.
Number 2, be very clear what to do with the sign up. So again, you could say, go to the Connect table to sign up for this, let's say, after the service. Well, like if you're not clear of where the Connect table is, or even if it says Connect table, but it's not super obvious. I mean, we have a teal wall. It's the only teal wall in our lobby. And so we say, go to the teal wall. So it's really obvious.
Yeah.
Or again, if they do the Connect card thing, or maybe you have handouts that were pre-printed for that Sunday because you're doing a serve push or whatever, you also need to be very clear of what to do with it, like when it's time to do something with it. And if you just say, hey, drop it off in a giving box, again, you have to understand that not everyone might know where that is or even what a giving box is, or they might not know where your Connect table is if you don't give more details on like where to actually do it. But you just need to be very clear on if they sign up, what to do with it. Otherwise, again, they might be really willing to sign up, but they're confused on how to sign up exactly or what to do with their piece of paper or whatever you have them doing, which means they're not going to do it. So you want to be very clear with what to do with the sign up if they sign up for something.
Yeah, assume that whoever you want to sign up has never been to your space before or never been to your church before, because hopefully that will actually happen. And so it doesn't take this long explanation, but just whatever you want them to do, just tell them exactly how to do it. If you call your connect table, and that's where you want them to go, then point them at, like, whatever. When you walk out of the auditorium into the lobby, it's to your right or something. Just give them some sort of direction. Or the giving boxes as you exit the building, they're on the walls on either side of the door, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be this long drawn out explanation, but just these little things kind of remove these barriers for newer people. Because I mean, if you're a newer person and you want to do something, you might be thinking, you're not going to think through your head of like, what's every step that it's going to take for me to do it. You may just be thinking, they want me to drop it off at this place. I don't know what this place is. So maybe after service, I'll see if I can find whatever this is. But then other things happen after service. You may meet somebody, or it may just be out of your mind. And then you kind of forget about your mission to find whatever the giving box or whatever is. And so you're just adding these kind of little barriers to people if you don't tell them exactly what to do and where to do it. And it's such little small explanations that people that go to your church are going to have no problem hearing it.
Yeah.
It's not like you're taking 5 minutes to explain where to drop it off. It's just you can think of it ahead of time, but think of a succinct way in a sentence of where to go or what to do with whatever the sign up is. And no one's going to think you're wasting time because it's that quick and succinct.
Yeah. So be very clear. And again, with the first one, make it possible right away. So part of it could be, hey, if you have this Connect card, whatever, fill it out right now. Or if you do this texting thing, like pull out your phone right now. And like, just like give them, like let them know it's okay to do it right now. They don't have to actually wait. And then be very clear. Again, this is pretty common too. If you're doing a serve push or something and and it's like an extra special thing and people are signing up for it, and maybe they can sign up during the service, you'd be very clear what to do with it after, or you might find them sitting, in the seat backs or on the floors of the service because they didn't know what to do with them after. So
yeah, and that's a good point. If you have any sort of digital way to sign up and it's during service, tell people that they can do it. Like give people permission to do it right then. Because this is true for any new person, but especially for people that have been there for a long time. If you don't kind of have this like culture built in yet, where people do this, it would feel weird to pull out a phone.
Yeah.
It may feel if especially like. We don't have a ton of people. We have some obviously, but we don't have a ton of people that read the Bible from an app. We provide Bibles and stuff, so those get used a lot. But so if you don't have people that are generally pulling out phones, it does feel weird to pull out a phone, and it feels like this is something I probably shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
And so kind of give people that permission of, hey, do this right now. I'm not, no one's judging you for pulling out your phone, but actually we want you to do this as we're talking.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe you're a church that's more traditional, and so it's like don't use your phone. So that can be awkward for us. We've got a lot of people. The reason probably more people don't use their phone for us is because we have Bibles in every seat back. And we've talked about this in other episodes, that we have the page number on the screen. So if you're going to read the main text for the day, you actually have to open the Bible. Or you could use your phone. But so again, if we didn't do that, we probably would have a lot of people that read their Bibles on their phones. And we do have some. But again, it's like, oh, you can actually do this right now. It's okay, even if your phone's like in your pocket. So be very clear with what to do with the sign up.
Yes.
Number 3, here's important. This is one that is important, is do not guilt them. Just tell them why.
Yeah.
So a really quick way to do this is like if you got something you want people to sign up for, it's never okay to say, hey, we've got this big event. We need, it's October now, and so when this episode's out, so trunk or treat's coming up, or fall festivals, or whatever. A lot of churches do that. So saying, hey, we need 20 people to sign up, or this isn't going to go well. No one's going to sign up for that.
Yeah.
What instead you should do is, hey, we're really excited about this. My recommendation is, and I've talked to some of our people that do next steps, especially if it doesn't go very well, is to, here's what the next step is, just as an example. That's what we call announcements. And just tell them one reason why they should do it. That's a really, simple rule of thumb. So, hey, we've got trunk or treat coming up. We need, it's a really big event. Like for us, last year we had over 600 people come. So that's why you should, that's like, I would do this a lot better. We had over 600 people come to our building for trunk or treat. It was awesome. And that's why we need you to sign up.
Yep.
So something like that, just tell them, don't need a million reasons why, because then that gets kind of convoluted. People stop listening. But you never want to say, hey, you need to do this or else. Or even if you don't use those words, if you kind of come across that way.
Yeah.
And I get it. Maybe you're discouraged. Maybe you're upset about something, or you're frustrated. And so it can sometimes be hard to be winsome. But that's what attracts people to actually want to do something. And so, again, whatever it is you're doing or you're pushing or asking for, you never want to make people feel guilty or they're not going to do it. Instead, just say, here's what we're doing. Give them one reason why, and I think you'll see a lot more success.
And fact of the matter is if you do go the kind of more guilting route, even if unintentionally, and potentially someone does feel guilted into doing it and does it, that's not the reason you want people to do whatever you're doing. Like for that example, we have Trunk or Treat or Fall Festival, whatever, coming up, and we want people to be there that want to be there, that want to serve there, because we know if people just feel guilted into being there, yeah, they may show because people want to help, but it's not gonna turn into an event that anyone actually wants to go to and come back to if people just are like begrudgingly there because they feel like they have to be. But we want people to enjoy being there, and we want people to actually make this an event that families want to come back to and stuff like that. So if you kind of like guilt people into doing this, then you may get some of like the really diehard people. They're like, okay, I see this is a big need, I'll do it. But it's not going to translate into what you're hoping, whatever the sign up is, will be. It'll translate into people doing things because they feel like they have to, which obviously that's not really the reason we want people to do anything in the church.
Yeah, so it's just, again, it's easy to get frustrated and come across as like, hey, if you really love Jesus, you'll do this. But that's just not helpful. And so you don't want to guilt people into signing up for anything. Just tell them what it is and maybe give them a good reason why and go from there. But yeah, the guilt thing happens a lot in churches, and it's not good. So.
And a side note, which you kind of touched on, this is one of the many reasons that we do a service run through at the beginning of every Sunday. We run through the service and we run through the announcements portion because we want to make sure we know what the person's going to be saying, and we want to make sure that this is kind of ironed out. So, I mean, there's been times where I think we've all given some sort of announcement that that there may be we have to hide a little bit of frustration, if that's the right word. You know, of like we really want people to sign up. Maybe that's the way to put it, and we have to try and not come across that way. But especially if this is a newer person doing it, they may come across that way, even if unintentionally, if they're not kind of being coached away from it. And so this is one reason why we do a run through and we tell people, hey, say exactly what you're planning to say. Don't just like get up there and say, I'm going to talk about this, but actually say what you're going to say, because then we can say like, hey, this actually sounded like you're trying to convince people, or this actually sounded like whatever reason it didn't come across the way it should, and we can kind of iron out those issues from there.
Yep. So no guilt, just tell them why, go that route.
Yep.
Number 4, push signups with a deadline. And so, again, you'll always find more people will do whatever the things you're asking them to do if there's like, hey, you have to do it by this time. And we've found maybe announcing stuff for like 2 to 3 weeks, but anything further than that, they're not likely to do it. So, I mean, let's say, I don't know, you need people to sign up to serve at an event, or maybe you're doing, like what we've learned too, even though people don't come to church every week, like if we're doing like a donation-based thing, like for a back-to-school drive or anything like that, we don't give them a whole month, because everyone waits till the last Sunday anyway.
Right.
We give them 2-3 weeks at the max to do anything we do. That's like 3 weeks is the most you get, because people just wait. Like that's all they do is just wait. It's a side note, but even when it comes to like fundraising and stuff like that, like giving people 3 months to tell you what their commitment is if you're raising money, bro, give them 3 weeks. I'm just on a part of this is personal experience, because when we moved to this building, we had to do that, and it worked. But it's just like everyone just waits. And so you want to give them a deadline. So again, this is a little bit easier if you have like a trunk or treat or something coming up where you can do that. And again, I personally wouldn't recommend, I know you might need a lot of people. Let's say you got a big event. I wouldn't recommend like talking about it for 8 weeks leading up to it. And so maybe you want to do some internal communication before that, but in terms of like big things from the church, you want to have deadlines. So even if it's something that people can always sign up for, it's helpful to do them maybe a couple times a year with a deadline. So for example, like groups, like people can always sign up for a community group at New City, but we take like typically about 3 breaks a year. And so coming out of the break, when groups are starting back up again, we push them for a few weeks, and you can sign up later, but people always sign up more because there's this, they're starting now, so I have to do it. And so if you need, like for example, if you need more people to serve, saying every week, hey, if you'd like to serve, you can sign up here, that's not as helpful as choosing a serve, like doing a serve day or serve push for like 2 weeks, and for 2 weeks saying, here are our positions or whatever. Just giving them, even if they have to be artificial, and even if you would accept the sign up for the thing at any point, focusing them on a shorter time with a real or not real deadline, it really helps.
Yeah, and you can, I mean, we kind of keep coming back to Trunk or Treat just because coincidentally that's the next thing, the next big thing that we have when this comes out. But you can have like private conversations with people outside of this to help kind of, like if it is something bigger, because I get like Trunk or Treat's not like the biggest thing in the world, but it's probably it's definitely the biggest event that we put on. And so especially if you're kind of newer coming into this role, we've done this for a while, so we kind of know how it works. But if you're newer, it might be like, wait until 3 weeks before to say anything about it, that can seem, this is more people than I need to serve than anything else. But the fact of the matter is, like, Brittany, who leads our kids, she's had conversations with most people who have served in the past and just been like, hey, can you plan to serve again? And it had these private conversations with people that have done it before. So there are spots filled. But when we're talking about it with like new people and talking about from stage as like a public thing, it's just not helpful to talk about it for a month, 2 months ahead of time, because people just don't plan that far out. And people can say that they're interested, but I mean, in reality is nobody's putting it on their calendar right then. No one's actually, and it's kind of unrealistic to say, like, can you make plans for 2 months out? Like, I don't know what life's going to look like. And I mean, in reality, most people could, but most people are going to think like, we can't really think about that far out. And so they think we'll think about it when it gets closer. So there's no point to just giving it this whole huge runway when in reality, no one actually wants to even think about it until it's closer. It's just to give it to them when they actually can think about it and can give you a definitive answer.
Yeah, because again, you can have these internal conversations anytime you want.
Yeah.
But if you're for 8 weeks talking about this big event, people are just going to stop listening. And then by the last couple of weeks, when you really want people to listen, they're like, we've heard this, like, we don't really care. It seems kind of weird. And so, yeah, if you've got big stuff you're nervous about, tell whoever and talk to people, whoever. But in terms of like these big pushes that everyone needs to hear continuously, putting it in your newsletter for 2 months, like, it's just, again, there's exceptions to every rule. So you might have something that you're doing that's different. So that's totally fine. But just generally speaking, people will tune it out. And so all that to say, if you push signups with a deadline, with whatever you're asking people to do, you're much more likely to see something than if it's just the perpetual whenever you feel like it.
And if we're being honest, we are not all like the most perfect communicators in the world. And if you're trying to communicate an announcement for 8 weeks in a row, by the 8th week or 7th week, you're going to lose some passion about it. And and it's going to sound a little formulaic. And hopefully, hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully we can figure those things out. But some things are just kind of, you do things unintentionally or unconsciously. And if you're just saying the same thing over and over, if it's 8 weeks or 10 weeks, there's only so many different things you can say.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to come across as if it's not as important. And that's at the time when it's the most important time for people to be hearing it. And so I just don't see it as being helpful to give it this huge long runway.
Yep. So push signups with a deadline. If it's a real deadline, it's easy. If it's an artificial deadline for something that you can sign at any time, we've also found that to be really helpful. But make it seem like it's somewhat urgent. Number 5, plan to push. What did I say?
Number 5.
5 is fine. Plan to push signups for a couple of weeks in a row.
Yep.
So this is also a thing that we do. Like, if you have something coming up, talking about it all the time isn't just really helpful. You want to do it a few focus times in a row. So, like for us, I mean, maybe for many of you as well, we have like pre-post slides that go on the screens that talk about stuff that's general, and like we put stuff in there that's coming up too. But like groups is always on there, serving's always on there, giving's always on there. There's a couple of things that are just always there. So that's totally fine to leave there. We're not saying take those off, but we're talking about like when we're actually pushing them, like people can give, for example, anytime they want.
Yeah.
But if you focus a couple of weeks, maybe with a certain goal in mind or for a certain reason, and mention it every single week, maybe differently than you normally do, you'll see a lot difference than, hey, if you want to give, you can give. The same thing like we talked about with groups. We do this for about 2 or 3 weeks every year when we take a break from groups and then bring them back. We talk about it on Sundays, intentionally. We typically, serving's different because we always need people to serve, but we typically do like a serve push every once in a while. Or even if it's not like this big serve push, we'll at least talk about it from stage for about 2 to 3 weeks in a row so people not only hear it, but again, for people that come once or twice a month, hear it at least once because they're not there every single week. But whenever you do something, and again, this is why we don't recommend like 8 weeks because that's way too much. And oftentimes just mentioning it once isn't enough either. But doing the same things for a couple weeks in a row. And again, as a side note for us, if we have events coming up for us, anything more than 3 weeks out, we don't mention it from stage or really in the email newsletter or really anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, people can hear about it. Again, if it's trunk or treat, we might have conversations. We've just found that, again, like Brian was saying, people don't plan that far ahead. And if you've got stuff this month and stuff next month, like it's just a lot of stuff. And people don't know they listen to what's important.
Yeah.
So we recommend just a couple of weeks in a row leading up to whatever it is you ask people to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that we only announce for 1 week. Like I was trying to think as you're talking, I don't think we've ever just said like this is the only week we're announcing it because nobody comes every single week. But we also don't give any more than 3 weeks. So that like 1 to 3 weeks is really, or I guess 2 to 3 weeks is really the window to shoot for, because then you're not just harping on it and you're not giving people too big of a runway, but also you're covering your bases so that the people that aren't there every week really get to hear it. So I think regardless of how big the event is, even something big or something small, that 2 to 3 week window I think really works pretty well.
Yep. So push signups for a couple weeks in a row. That's number 5. And number 6, last but not least, and we'll talk about this for a little bit, short code texting with keywords. So you might be doing this, and so this might be nothing new to you at all. My guess is if you're a smaller church or a church plant, you might not be doing this yet. We just started doing this less than a month ago from when we talked about this, but we're going to stick to it and really find it helpful. What we do, and we don't do this for like one-off events. I mean, you just have to pay more for keywords, so that makes it a little bit trickier. But we use Clearstream. Like I said, there's different companies that do this. As of this recording, Texan Church doesn't do the short code, which is why we're just personally migrating over to Clearstream for texting instead of Texan Church, because saying, text, 919, saying 10 digits sounds like an infomercial, which we don't want to do. And again, for us, short code texting is because if people are watching online or listening to the podcast later, saying fill out a Connect card for this or sign up at the Connect table for this, they can't do that.
Yep.
And I also found from listening to I mentioned this last episode, from listening to a couple pastors, if churches obviously I don't go to, they do this often, and I'm like, I'll sign up. I don't even go there, but I'll text the number because I hear it so often. And so what we do is we use Clearstream. Now, I mentioned this last time, you can get your own dedicated 5-digit number that's unique to your church organization, but they're super expensive. I guess a couple years ago, there was a law passed with legislation. I don't know who gets the money. I guess it's for spam purposes or trying to reduce it. It's like $1,200 to create your own number, and then it's like $500 a month to keep it up.
Yeah.
Now, the benefit of that is that you could say text, let's just say it was 50,000. That's 5 digits, right? Yes.
Yes. 50000.
Yeah, let's just say 50,000. I don't know why I want to say that. But let's say text groups to 50,000. Well, then you could do that.
Yep.
Or you could text, and you could probably do a lot of keywords, text give or text, trunk for trunk or treat. I don't know. For Clearstream, and I think maybe there's some other ones that are like this, you can do that route. It's too expensive. We're not going that route. We're doing the generic, you just pay for the text and the keywords, and you get a generic one. So like for us, it's 97,000, which I think for Clearstream is like the standard one for most people, unless you pay for your own. And then you can create keywords, but they have to be unique. So you can't say text groups, for example, to 97,000 because who knows who has that.
That's taken,
right. Taken or whatever. So it has to be somewhat unique so that you can use it. So for us, for New City Church, it's NCC groups or NCC baptism or NCC
Connect.
Yeah. All one word. It's a little unfortunate because one of them goes to 2 words, so we just try to say one word. But again, the point is we say this every week. People will kind of catch on to it. And what we do is during next steps, we say, hey, you can fill out a Connect card. So right now we have Connect, Give. No, we don't have Give. We have Connect, Baptism, and Groups. We'll add Serve. The problem is the more you add, the price goes up for each keyword. So as we need stuff, we'll do it. But we've got the main ones. And so even during the Connect card, which we mention every week during next steps, we say, hey, you can fill this Connect card, or you can text the number, or you can text NCC Connect to 97,000. And it's important, we don't say for those watching online. It's anybody could do it, in person or what. I mean, obviously, people online, that's their only option. They might actually do it. And so that's what we've set up. It allows me to mention it during the sermon, too, if it's relevant. So I don't have to say, again, text, here's a 10-digit number, sounds like an infomercial, where you'd also have to put that on the screens for people to catch it, which is a lot, and just don't trust the screen person to do that the right way every time. And so for us, it's 97,000. So you can text NCC Groups or NCC Connect or NCC Baptism or whatever to 97,000. And as you say it more and more, people are more likely to actually do it and hear it. Now, again, if you're a new person hearing NCC Connect, it's their first time hearing it. I get that. But again, if you're talking about serving and you mention it often, or every time you talk about groups, especially if you do it for a few weeks in a row, and always when you can preach an announcement, it's always more helpful if you can put it into the sermon. That makes it really easy for people that are listening later, because obviously for us, the podcast or after the live stream, you really are only listening to the sermon, so you're not listening to the next steps anyway. But that's what we do. We're using Clearstream. We're paying for the keywords. Again, as you add a keyword, you have to pay for more of it, but it allows people who don't have a Connect card and people who may be in service. And you know how this goes. You're interested in signing up for groups, but if you sign up for groups in the Connect card, you have to bring the Connect table, and you have to talk to someone, and maybe you're not exactly sure, or you feel like they're going to force you to do something you don't want to do, and so you just don't do it at all. This gives you the option, other than go to newcityrd.com/ nobody remembers that.
Right. Yeah.
And so for us, that's what we're doing now. We're using Clearstream and 97,000, which is the generic one, and then specific keywords for the specific next steps.
Yeah, I think this is really helpful for people. I mean, for a lot of reasons, but for the people that's like you said, don't want to necessarily take a Connect card and go and have this 10-minute conversation with somebody. Like, especially in a smaller church setting, it's near impossible to come here unless you come late and leave early and not be greeted or met or a conversation started with somebody. Just, I mean, as obviously as you get bigger and bigger, that's a little bit tougher, but in a smaller church setting, that's one of the big benefits. So you may have come and already had a couple of conversations, and to some people that's great, and to some people you might think I'm good, like that's enough. And so you may not really want to go and talk to the person at the Connect table because, man, I don't know if they're going to talk to me for 10 minutes. My kids might be over in kids ministry. I might need to get them. I don't know how long people are okay with kids waiting over there. Like, there's a lot of things that you kind of forget that people think about when they go to a new church, especially if they're not people that have gone to church their whole lives. And so this gives them an opportunity to participate if they don't want to be kind of roped into a conversation, or if they don't want to feel like they can't spend longer talking to somebody. And obviously it helps the people online, helps the people listen to the podcast, all those kind of things. But I think, and it really helps for those specific reasons. And I think it helps for the people that are here, that have been here for a long time, who maybe don't feel like they should be filling out a Connect card. Like everything, not everything, serving, groups, baptism, all those things up until this point, it's if you're interested, fill out a Connect card, and we have a checkbox on there, which we don't care if you've been here for a long time or not. You can fill one out. But if you've been here for a long time and always heard Connect card, Connect card, Connect card, and you filled one out 2 years ago, it may be kind of weird to be like, okay, I'm going to fill one out. Are they going to, like, they're supposed to, we give a Chick-fil-A gift card in exchange for one. It's like, do I ask for a gift card? And there's a bunch of like things that people probably aren't like seriously debating in their head, but it's just those little tiny questions that you want to remove from their mind where, hey, if I can just text this and I get something sent to me and I can fill it out from there, I don't know what's going to happen next, but at least I know what this first step is, and it's a really easy first step. And I think that really helps people to do it.
And when they text that number, they get a little message back with a link to our website where they can digitally fill it out. Where, again, they could also just go to newcityrd.com/whatever it is. But people aren't going to remember that. They're not going to do it. It's super 97,000. That's super easy. And people have already done it. In fact, a couple weeks ago, our sound guy texted to join a group. During the service because the next step person said it.
And like a real text. He actually joined a group.
Yeah, like he would not have filled out a Connect card. Like he just wouldn't. I think he was in the group years ago and then COVID and stuff. And so he hadn't rejoined one. Like, I don't think he would have signed up for a group unless he remembered to go home. He's an introvert. To remember to go home on his website. The website.
I can guarantee he wouldn't have, because we've had multiple group pushes in the time where he's left one and rejoined, and he hasn't. So something about the texting worked.
Yeah, so it's all relative. But in our last group push, we just rolled this out with the group push, and we had 2 people sign up via text in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Which, again, it's all relative. Maybe that's a lot for you. Maybe that's a little for you. But both people who signed up might not have even signed. At least one of them would not have signed up otherwise because it's super easy. So now, one thing you did notice we didn't talk about in this episode is signing up at the Connect table. We've just found, like, if you do like a form, like a serving, whatever, they can also put their name in. We just found that people like don't do that. Now, again, there might be exceptions for something where you have to have like a physical paper form, but like hardly anyone ever does that for anything. And so you can do it, but just know, like, I wouldn't make that like my primary thing, because we've tried this a lot and like people just don't really want to go and fill out a piece of paper at the Connect card. Or at the Connect table after service. It's really interesting.
We did that for a while, and it just never seemed to pan out. One thing I'll add about the short code texting, if this is a route you decide to go, or really any route you decide to go, one thing we talked about when doing this is, because we're a relatively small, we're not a huge church, and if you're listening to this, you're probably not a huge church either. And so we're not going to get 10, 15 texts a week. And there's probably going to be stretches where we get none. One of the things we talked about is, hey, if we want to do this, we have to give it a long time before we decide to, hopefully we never abandon it, but if we ever decide it's not for us, we're giving it a big window of time to try it out, because we just know there's going to be, like, nothing's going to work every single week. And so that's what I encourage you. If you decide to go this route, give it a year. Give it like a long period of time, because there's going to be periods where nothing happens, and it's probably going to be easy, especially if you kind of are naturally someone who makes a little bit more of snap decisions, or if you're really budget conscious, you may think like, oh, we're wasting money and we shouldn't do it. But over time, I do think it'll pan out for the majority of churches. However, you have to give it that amount of time. So I'd encourage you, if it's something you want to do, make the decision yourself, or talk to your leadership or whatever, and be like, hey, we're gonna stick with this for X amount of time, and whether it works or doesn't. And at the end of that time, we can assess if we're going to keep it or not. But that way, we've at least given it a fair shot. We have like the actual data to say if this would be something that we do for the lifetime of the church or not.
Yeah. So that's what's helpful. Again, for us as well, even our screens, when it comes to the texting, like they say, like the Connect card, it says fill out Connect card or text this. for groups and for serving next time we do the serve push, it's not even going to say fill out the Connect card. It literally just says community groups, text NCC groups to 97,000. Now, of course, when we mention it from stage, there's other ways. But I think, again, people just seeing that number over and over again, when they're ready to take a step, they just know what to do. There's no confusion. There's no question. So that's what we do. Again, we're using Clearstream right now. We're not sponsored by them at all. So, this is just what we found helpful. If you go this route, you want to find keywords that are consistent. So you want to use the same ones and that are as short as possible. So like New City groups, that's a lot of word. Or New City church groups. So NCC is the shorter for us. I don't love it the best, but that's the easiest way to remember it. Or you could do like groups and maybe, I don't know, like a two or three letter combination after the word groups if your church, if it sounds better that way, whatever it looks like for you. But we recommend it. Again, you have to pay per keyword, so you might want to stick with a couple that you really want to push for a while. But yeah, try it for a while before you give up with it, because if you don't get signups in general every week for something, don't expect this to radically change everything.
True.
But I just, again, for me, after listening to some of these pastors do it, it's like for a while, I'm like, I don't even go to your church, but I'll text it. It's just funny.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the same here, and people keep hearing it, like, okay, fine. And when they're ready, they know exactly what to do. And of course, if they're watching or listening later, they also can actually do it where they can't fill out a Connect card, or they can't go to the Connect table, or anything else that you might say for Sunday only. So
yeah, and I don't think you mentioned costs, and I don't remember what is off the top of my head, but it's affordable. I mean, long story short,
if I remember correctly, I think it's $29 for 3, $49 for 4 as of right now, keywords, and then $100 for 5.
Yeah.
So it starts. You do have to kind of decide sooner or later. You can't do unlimited. So like if it's a one-off event, we wouldn't do it for that.
Right.
But yeah, that's the cost right now.
And I mean, in most contexts, that's a pretty low cost, and I think it's worth trying this out. If you're feeling you should do this, I would say pull the trigger and do it. Like I don't think this needs to take like a huge amount of time to try and think about it either way. But obviously give it a big window. But this isn't a massive financial undertaking.
Yeah, when it comes to like what you should invest in, getting people to take their next step is like one of the premier things.
Right. Yes.
And
true.
so again, if you're like, I don't know if I can afford $29 a month or $49 a month, I get it. But also, if you can't afford that for next steps, you're probably you're going to be in a hard spot. Which is why we recommend planting with a network or denomination. Have people surround you. Not doing this by yourself, because some of this stuff costs money to do this well. And we would definitely recommend trying this out for a few months.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, we talked about, but this is what we use for our next steps. So what we actually, they're literally what we want people, the next steps we want people to take in their faith for the most part. Like we're not really using this to sign up for an event. We're not using this to sign up for trunk or treat or whatever, even though we want people to do that. But in our minds, this is something like this is worth the money, because if we're doing this and we're helping communicate with people how they can go about getting baptized, or how they can go about, getting plugged in with a community and things like that. This isn't just, we hope someone comes and has a good time. Like these are things that we really care about. And so, obviously wouldn't say we would be doing this regardless of the cost, because that's not true. But we would be doing this even if it was a little more expensive, because it's worth it to give people that possibility to be able to do these things.
Yep. So short code texting with keywords is a little bit how we do it as well. So that is 6 ways to get more signups. Speaking of signups, Practical Church Planning on Facebook group. You don't have to sign up for it, but you can join if you're not in there.
Yep.
We've got a free newsletter, and we also send you a church planner's guide to social media, which is highly practical. Like if you're like, what do I even post on social media during the week? You can get that at practicalplanting.com. And for productivity tips and advice, DylanDotson.com/productivity, and you can get those as well. Thanks for being with us, and we'll be with you next week on Practical Church Planting.